What's up guys, DuArktik here with another Marvel Strike Force video, and in this video we are going to talk about the Marauders, and we are going to talk about their ISO 8 T4 recommendations, position of the team, and overall how good these characters are going to be on different game modes. This infographic is always available on my Discord, usually as the patch is released. We have the preview version, and then eventually we have the final version whenever the full team is released and we have time to try it out. So like always, if you like the information on these videos, make sure you share them with your friends on Facebook and Discord. Someone just subscribed. If you're new to my channel, make sure you subscribe for more Marvel Strike Force content, and make sure you smash that like button. Okay, so let's take a look at this infographic from the Marauders. And with the Marauders, they were a pretty nice team in the past. We had the different versions. We had the first version with the Sabertooth, then we had a different version where we were using the Blob, and sometimes people like to use Magneto on this team, but right now the version we have is with the Madelyne Pryor, the new character that was made available. And you can see, you already know from the other videos that I made that she's going to be a very, very powerful character. And you need to understand her role. She's not only a controller, she's also a massive damage dealer. So you really want to emphasize that quality about her. If you are going to have her in a situation where she cannot provide a lot of damage, so if she's going to be like very, very small, or if she has the wrong ISO weight, you might not be able to get out of her what she should be doing, which is massive amount of damage. And talking right now about let's talk about first about the ISO 8 recommendations. You can see right here, based on this concept, we want to have Striker ISO 8 on her. She has a very powerful basic attack. She has very, very high stats in terms of base damage. So you really want to max out her damage. She does tons of damage with her special, she does tons of damage with her ultimate, and if she kills someone with her ultimate, she will give more energy to Mr. Sinister. So if you are using something other than Striker on her, let's imagine you are using Healer or Skirmisher or whatever, then it might happen that you don't do enough damage to kill an enemy with the ultimate, and that will result in less energy for Mr. Sinister, and this is something you definitely don't want. So once again, you want to maximize as much as possible her damage output, and you can do this more consistently by using Striker on her. Raider is also an option, but once again, I prefer consistency. It's just my playstyle, and the Striker is the best option for that. Now, you can see that in terms of T4s, this is a rating from 1 to 5. As you can see, the T4s, they're not like game-breaking. I usually give higher rankings to T4s that are game-breaking. So here, for example, Mr. Sinister, his special spreads all positive effects on him for all mutants. So this is a very powerful T4. But for Madelyne Pryor, even that she does a nice amount of damage with all of her abilities, it's not game breaking, and that's why they have a little bit lower value. As a Striker, of course, you want to consider doing the T4 on the basic. The special does 50% more damage to all enemies. It's nice overall in terms of damage output, but it's not something that is going to change your match. Now the ultimate, like I mentioned before, because if you kill an enemy with this ability, you can give more energy to Mr. Sinister, then this T4 is a little bit better. And the special, it will increase the chance that she has of assisting on non-attack abilities from 25% to 50%, so that's a big amount, and you want this as often as possible because she is the biggest damage output of the team. So once again, Striker and so on. Now I gave her gold credit evaluation, and that means that you should try to get her at 5 red stars or above, and that's because she benefits a lot from the high focus and definitely high damage. Maybe it's a little bit on the low end, so if you get a 5, 6, that's going to be great. 7, definitely not, but it's not terrible either. She's a big damage dealer and she's going to benefit from all of that. She uses Astral Energy, the same as Ikari, Silver Surfer, Iceman, and also Phoenix. So a lot of characters that use that unique, but most of them you probably have geared up by now. Okay, so now we have Mr. Sinister, and Mr. Sinister, I like to use him as a healer to make sure that he heals a lot. He heals with his special and also with his passive, so that's going to be very important. He applies a bunch of regenerations and he also has direct healing, and all of that are amplified by the ISO 8 healer. In terms of the T4s, the basic, it's a 1-star. It does a lot of damage, but it's not significant, single target damage, and he's not a striker. Then the special, very strong as I mentioned before, he spreads all positive effects to all mutant allies. That's very, very strong, and it heals for a nice amount. The ultimate is very important because that makes sure that the clones have all of abilities available. And then the passive, it gives more HP, more stats, and also more healing for the team, so it's a very good T4 as well. Once again, I try to value the T4s based on how much they change the matches, and this is something that Mr. Sinister definitely does with his T4s. He uses the Ballistic Weave. There are a few characters that use these, but the most significant are Mr. Sinister and Emma Frost. There is also Multiple Man, but he's not super relevant right now, so you probably have a bunch of these to use. And in terms of the rating, I gave him a 6. I gave him a gold promotion credits because he's good at 6, maybe even 7. He's one of the few characters that might be good at 7 red stars, but only do this if you have like a bunch of old gold credits sitting around and you like this team. If you don't like this team, forget about it. There is no point on investing this character for no reason. Okay, so next we have Mystique, and Mystique, she's extremely underrated. She's a very, very strong character, very, very underrated. Now, her basic attack copies positive effects from the enemies. If you have Madelyne Pryor or Magneto, she's gonna copy all positive effects from the enemies to herself, and then Mr. Sinister can spread all these positive effects to everyone, and that's pretty much it. Now, it also attacks 3 times, so that's a lot of damage. Some people consider using her as a raider just because of this ability. I don't think that's a good option. I think the ISO 8 Skirmisher is the best for her. And yes, even that this team has 120% extra focus, and this is why Madelyne Pryor does not require extra focus, because she has a very high focus and the team as a whole get 120% extra focus buff. In the case of Mystique, because we need to flip positive effects on the enemies, many times that's defense up, so the Skirmisher ISO 8 is going to have additional benefits specifically for her. Because she also has a 100% chance of assist if you do the T4 on the passive, then the value of her being a skirmisher to apply vulnerabilities is going to be a lot better. Once again, she doesn't do as much damage as Madelyne Pryor, that's why one is a striker and the other is a skirmisher. Mystique is way more of a control character, manipulation character than Madelyne Pryor is. And in terms of the T4s, let's talk about them once again. So the basic, it's pretty decent. If you do the T4, you're going to copy all positive effects and you're going to do some additional damage. The special is a very, very powerful T4. It will allow you to flip positive effects on the enemies, including defense up and so on. So this one is very, very powerful. It also applies bleeds, so the higher you have it, the more damage it will do. The ultimate, it increased a little bit of damage of the enemies that are mind controlled, but overall it's not a good T4, just increase the damage a little bit, so it's not super significant. And the passive, it's somewhat decent. It guarantees that you always have evade on spawn, and that evade can be shared. It's going to be important down the line. And it also guarantees that she has 100% chance of assist on non-attacking abilities. Skirmisher ISO 8, as we mentioned, she uses Adamantium, and this is required by quite a lot of characters, we have Wolverine, we have Lady Deathstrike, so there alone we have already two very powerful characters that require this item, so she might be not a super relevant option. And in terms of the red stars, I think she's good enough at a 4 or a 5, but beyond that it's not really necessary. Okay, so now we are going to talk about Stryfe. And Stryfe, in terms of ISO weight, because he's a tank, you should use him as a fortifier. And this is because if you don't have Emafrost, he will not have a defense up, and the defense up will only last for 2 turns. So this is the best way to protect him and also give him some additional barrier to make sure that he survives doing his job as a tank. Now, in terms of the T4s, with the basic he does a little bit more damage. It's nice, but it's not super relevant, it's single target damage. Then we have the special. The special gives 5% more barrier, because we already have the fortified ISO weight, and because he already gives himself 20% barrier thanks to his special and also thanks to his passive. So having 5% additional here is not super relevant. Again, with the fortified ISO weight, he will get 7% on turn, so you'll be a little bit overflow in terms of barrier, so it's not relevant at all. Now, in terms of the ultimate does massive damage. He also has pretty decent base stats in terms of damage. So if you do the T4, you are going to do a nice chunk of damage, but once again, it's not a game-breaking ability or a T4, so it's not super relevant. Now, in terms of the passive I think it gives more barrier and more resistance and focus, and that's important, very important overall for his survivability, with that all additional barrier and also the focus and the resistance. In terms of red stars, not super relevant. You can have him as 4 red stars, 5 red stars. Beyond that, he's decent because he gets barrier, he does damage, and he's a tank, but it's not game-changing, and he's not like super relevant because he's too slow. Use the titanium alloy. There are so many characters that use titanium alloy. You have Sharon Carter, you have Dr. Octopus, you have Colossus, you have Cyclops. So a lot of important characters, so he might not be one of your biggest priorities, but it's a pretty decent character, and he's a lot of fun. So I don't know, it's up to you if you find him interesting enough or not. Finally, we have Emma Frost, and Emma Frost, she's part of this team, but she's not a Marauder. And in terms of the ISO weight, this is very important. Some people like to use her as a healer, fortifier, or whatever. I think that's a big mistake. You need to use her as a skirmisher. Yes, she has a nice focus, but because of this ability, because of the ultimate, you need even higher focus, because many times you are going to use this ability on tanks, like Captain Sam, and if you are not able to strip the positive effects from the enemies, then this ability goes to waste, and she loses a lot of the value that she has, which is mind control and removing all the positive effects from the enemies. So once again, the higher focus, the better. And like I mentioned, because she's not a Marauder, she doesn't get all the buffs that the team provides. She gets the buffs from Stryfe, for example, for villain mutants, but she will not get the buffs for the Marauders. So once again, that's why it's important to have her as a skirmisher. In terms of the T4s, the basic, it's okay, it does a little bit more damage, but it's single target, it doesn't change anything special. The special, I think, I don't remember exactly, but I think it gives more barrier, it applies slows and does something else, I don't remember, but it's a good T4, this one. The ultimate, now the ultimate is very, very important, because it will remove more positive effects, it will summon to enemies or allies to attack the enemy, so that's going to be super relevant. This is a very good T4, very important for her. And then the passive, I think she gets more barrier, more survivability, and that's going to be important as well. Now, in terms of the red stars, because she's a kit-based character, kit-based, that means she doesn't do much with her abilities in terms of damage output or giving herself barrier or whatever. So having more red stars on her don't really change much about her. She requires, so for example, other characters like Stryfe, the more HP he has, the more barrier, the more armor, the more everything, the better for him. But for Emma Frost, it's not super relevant. The more red stars will just increase mostly her survivability, so it's not super relevant. If you have her at 5 red stars, that's pretty good. Even 4 red stars, once again, it's way more important to have the skirmisher isolate and to have the correct T4s. Okay, so that's all in terms of T4s and isolate for the Marauders. Now let's talk about the position of the team. You want to have Stryfe to be in one corner because he's the tank. Then you want to have Emma Frost, and the reason why is because she has the highest survivability, and even if she has slow or some other negative effect that is splashed from Stryfe, is not going to be super relevant. Now Mr. Sinister, you want to have him somewhere in the middle or far away from the tank to make sure that he doesn't apply any splash negative effects that are dealt to Stryfe. And you also want to make sure that he doesn't lose any of the positive effects, because he's going to spread all those positive effects with the entire team. With Madelyne Pryor, you want to keep her somewhat far away from the tank. She is beefy, she is strong, but she doesn't have massive abilities to protect her. So you still want to keep her somewhat far away from the tank. And once again, we don't want any kind of splash negative effects applied to her. And finally, Mystique. Mystique and Madelyne Pryor, they can be interchangeable between them, but I like to keep Mystique as far away as possible because she spawns with evade, as we mentioned before. So you want to keep her as far away from possible from action to make sure that she keeps this evade, so after Mr. Sinister can spread this evade to everyone else, including Stryfe. This is very, very important, and if you have Mystique right here next to Stryfe, she will lose her evade right away, and this is why I want to keep her as far away as possible. Okay, so here we have the ranking that I give to each of these characters individually or as a team, depending on the game mode. So we have Blitz, we have Arena, we have Raids, we have Dark Dimension, we have Alliance Wars, we have Avengers Tower, and we have Cosmic Crucible. Some of these game modes, we can use all of these characters together as a team, and this is for Blitz, Alliance Wars, Avengers Tower, and Cosmic Crucible. Other game modes like Arena, Raids, and Dark Dimension, we cannot use these characters as a team, so they will lose more value because of that. But as you can see, this team is quite powerful in terms of Blitz overall. Then in terms of Alliance Wars, whether you use them on defense or on offense, they are still pretty decent on offense. They are going to be quite powerful. If you follow my Avengers Tower run, you saw that they were also very good on Avengers Tower. I cleared 3 levels on the beyond level 75 thanks to them, and this is why they have such a good rating. And in Cosmic Crucible, it's a game mode that will be available next patch. Because of their flexibility and because the fact you can clone one of the enemies and use that to your advantage, they are also going to be very relevant for the Cosmic Crucible. In the other game modes, they don't have super relevance. On Dark Dimension, some of these characters are okay, like Mr. Sinister and Emma Frost. In terms of raids, Emma Frost is also pretty good together with Omega Red and Astonishing X-Men, but the other characters not so much. So yeah guys, that's going to be the video. I hope you guys enjoyed the infographic for the Marauders with all the information that you need to know about this team. So if you found this information helpful, make sure you share it with your friends on Facebook and Discord. If you are new to my channel, make sure you subscribe for more Marvel Strike Force content, and I will catch you guys later.